our meeting.
Do I have to turn this on with the switch?
Yes.
Okay, if I could please, we'll call the meeting of the General Employees Retirement Plan Committee together, General Employees Retirement Committee together, Board of Trustees at about 3:31 on the 15th. And I guess for purposes of quorum, if we could, we only have one microphone, and I don't know who all is attending by phone. I see Ms. Thomas is, Ms. Henry,
And that's just me.
and then Jill is here, so I guess no one else is attending. So for purposes of the minutes and the record, we have Brett Dennis here from the Gas Authority on the board, and our former city manager is also here, Alan Bush, and then Mr. Chambers is here, and Jill is here, and I'm advised that we have a quorum. Ms. Thomas is appearing by Zoom, and Ms. Henry is appearing by Zoom. So with that having been said, we'll let that suffice for a roll call because no one else has a microphone in the room, and I don't know if your voices will carry over to where I am with this microphone. So we'll pass the mic when it comes time to have
We don't mind if you hear me.
other people speak. And the first order of business is approval of the minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting? When you're ready, please indicate in some fashion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes. I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Dennis, second by Mr. Bush. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, like sign. Next, we have the BCA report from Mr. Chambers. You may want to use the mic, Mr. Chambers.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's get right down to it. Let's go right to the fiscal year, which is on page 4. Obviously, we had a very strange year with the COVID announcement. It crushed the market in the latter part of February on into March. So that really gave us a tough challenge to get ahead of all of that. But the second bullet describes what actually happened to your fiscal year. The plan earned 1.4 million, or 8.1% net of fees. Results were ahead of the model and ranked in the top 31 percentile. Now, the median plan around the country earned 7.4%. So half of these plans around the country earned 7.4 or better, and the other half of the plans around the country earned 7.4 or below. There was a little bit of a rebalance that we took care of in early April. So looking back, we kind of captured the bottom of the market. The bottom of the market was right around March 26th. So with equities depressed, the timing of that rebalancing was beneficial in getting this kind of performance. The police and fire plans have a 65% allocation model to equities. You're at 60, and as I've mentioned to you before, the police and fire plans are more aggressive because they have a higher allocation of stocks. So really, that's a remarkable achievement for the year. And if you look at the 3-year average of 6.8%, I should mention that the Florida retirement system lowered their assumed rate of return in October to 7% from 7.2. And you might also notice that your 10-year average here was 7.4% net, which is pretty much in the sweet spot of where you were trying to be the last 10 years. The actuary will be here in March, Patrick, and I suggested to Jill that she put on the agenda a discussion of the assumed rate of return. So your actuary, they have 300 or 400 clients in Florida. They're announcing to everybody the same thing. You need to go to 7%, regardless of the financial health or of the city or the funding ratio. They're using the same approach. I think it's important to have a conversation about it, and I wouldn't accept necessarily the actuary's position on that until you get the facts. Also, a number of plans around the state have received letters from the Division of Retirement urging them to lower their assumed rates of return. You haven't gotten those letters as far as I know.
What's the logic or the motive behind urging us to assume a lower rate of return other than to make the target be more easily to achieve for the fund managers?
Well, I hear you, and I don't think the intent is to make it easier for the managers to look good. I believe that this is a national phenomenon, and it began when interest rates got to such a low level as where they are now. The yield of maturity, for example, on your bonds now is less than 2%. In the old days, the bonds were generating at least twice that, almost 3 times that. So the so-called capital market forecasters, and I don't really think there's much truth in this, honestly, but the forecasters are saying that equities and bonds and so forth are not going to generate the kinds of returns going forward that they did in the past. And therefore, you need to start to dial down your expected rates of return. There was a gathering in Tallahassee over the summer of a number of actuaries to discuss with the state of Florida retirement system what is a reasonable rate of returns. They didn't invite me, but they all weighed in, and the consensus was that they need to put the word out that the rates of return, for years this plan had 8%. When you first hired me years ago, you were 8%. And it's been 8% for most of the time I've been here with you. And it just recently started to move down. We're not sure where it is now. So it was 7.6 or 7.75. It's somewhere in here. We can look it up. Close enough. So the actuary already started the process several years ago, suggesting that you go down. I don't know if I answered your question. There was an inflation premium that was built into these expected rates of return maybe 25 years ago, but we haven't had any inflation in this country in 25 years.
So for planning purposes, I guess my question is, what is the benefit of lowering your expectation as to your rate of return?
Well, first of all, the actuary is in here who does all the dial turning and button pushing to come up with the funding ratio and projections. But the initial impact of lowering the assumed rate of return is that the city is going to have to put in more money.
That's what I say.
And that's not necessarily, here's my view. I've been doing this a long time. There's already a self-correcting mechanism in the formula used by the actuary. Here's what I mean. They use a 5-year smoothing methodology. And so they take the 5-year investment returns and they average them so that they take out the big bumps, the big volatility. So every year when they do a report and they come up with the minimum required contribution, they're using that 5-year smoothing. Why do they need to change? If the plan did not achieve the expected rate of return, then they dial in a higher required minimum contribution. They're already doing that. So I don't really understand why forcing you to pay the mortgage off quicker, which is essentially what they're doing here, why it benefits, I don't see it benefiting the city of Palatka. Now, I'm a kind of a maverick on this topic. Everybody else is running in one big herd on this. And I'm one of the few on the outside saying, wait a minute, I'm not sure this makes sense.
What do you think the change in the administration is going to do, the policies of the new president coming in?
I don't know. I mean,
Inflation be high as a kite after that.
I don't really know. I don't really know what's going to happen next year or the year after. The capital markets, well, let's start with tax policy. I think there's going to be an attempt to rescind the tax policy changes that went into effect 3 years ago that essentially lowered the corporate income tax rate. They may rescind that. That means the companies won't have as much money left over to buy stock with. But regrettably, one of the unintended consequences of that bill was that corporations just used the extra money left over, having paid less taxes, to buy stock. But I think that the economy is poised to grow really well next year. This is based on what I'm reading, and it's because of the vaccine. The vaccine is going to be a game changer. I think we all know that. And if, 40% of the country apparently doesn't believe in the vaccine, but I think that many people will get the vaccine and feel a lot better about traveling and doing what they like to do, having parties and being with family, et cetera. So it'll be a game changer, and it'll help this portfolio. It'll make you more money. That's my belief.
Pretty short term, though, I think.
Well, it's the airlines it's going to take the airlines years to recover. The whole hospitality industry, whether it be hotels, restaurants, they're all in bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take years for them to come back. I'm not expert enough in what this new administration is going to try to do or try not to do to give you an informed opinion on that.
Back to the change though, we have an option. We can, as you said, make them defend their point on asking to go to 7.
You can. Cassandra?
Need to put you on the spot.
Yes.
Okay. We're talking about next March and the discussion with the actuary about the assumed rate of return. They haven't received a letter from the Division of Retirement yet. Their performance, 10-year performance, supports where they are right now in terms of their expected return, which we think is around 7.75 or 7.6. The question is, can the state compel them to lower the assumed rate of return to 7%?
I don't believe that they can force the board to lower it to 7% or a certain percentage, but I'll definitely follow up and get back to Jill and the board on that, and to you.
But they're going to make a strong recommendation, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, the state is like the flagship of the fleet. They are telling everybody to go 10 degrees to the right. They don't care. They just want everyone to be together.
Yeah.
And not wander off this way. Those chambers going up that way, I told them to go right, not left. But I don't think you're going to have to change anytime soon, and I don't, frankly, see that it's a good thing for the city of Palatka either. I just don't see that makes any sense right now. So let me take you to page 19. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. By the way, you all look better in person than on the Zoom. So the peer universe, this is interesting because this breaks out into 4 different, what we call quartiles in the vertical, these columns. Where the yellow and green meet, that's the median. And you can see that really over time, you really have remained really above the middle for most of the time. And considering the conservative nature of the program, I think that's quite respectable. In other words, if you had been more aggressive in equities, you would be higher in your rankings in the last 10 years, because the last 10 years has been a bull period. The other thing I wanted to take you to is on 17. So you can see the domestic equity split here. You have large cap growth, which is the big winner for the year. And it's been the big winner for 3 years for domestic equity, the big winner for 5 years. And it's all tech. And a big part of that index is the index itself is really controlled by 10 companies, actually 5. And you've heard of all of them. Alphabet, Google, Amazon, and Netflix. Then we have Ceradex, large cap value. This is a fund in the value space, and value is, as I mentioned earlier, has been out of phase, out of favor relative to growth. It's actually coming back right now nicely. Mid-cap growth has been a winner for the year in the equity space, and so has small cap growth. So mid-cap or small cap value have lagged until the quarter we're in right now. The mid-cap value, let's see. The mid-cap value right now for this quarter we're in right now is up about 26% in the last 2 months and 2 weeks. So you're going to be quite impressed when you see this report if everything holds for the next couple of weeks because value is roaring back. Same with small cap value. It shows it was down for the year, but it's making a tremendous comeback. The big story, frankly, for you for the 1 year period were the convertible bonds. Look at that. The Barclays convertible securities, you had 1.6 million in them. They earned 35% for the year. Now, what's interesting about this index is that the largest single issuer that's in this index is an electric car company. Anybody want to guess?
Tesla?
Tesla convertible bonds are bonds that have an equity optionality. So when the common stock of the issuer, in this case Tesla, which is around 16% of the weighting of the index earlier in the year, if the common stock doubles in price and goes up another 15%, another 20%, it drives up the convertible bond just like the stock. They're hitched together at the hip. And that's why so you have an electric growth company, electric car company that's high growth embedded in that index, and that's why it's done so well. The Cohen-Steers infrastructure is very COVID sensitive. You look at the kinds of companies that are in this index, or excuse me, in their portfolio, Cohen-Steers. It includes companies like airports and toll roads, and infrastructure and ports, infrastructure related to travel and leisure have been hurt. But by the same token, as the world economy recovers next year, Kona is seriously do very well next year. So didn't do well this year, but that was made up by the convertible bonds. At the top of page 18, you have a European Pacific Mutual Fund, Euro Pacific, 15% for the year versus 0.9 for the index. You have a small allocation to the REIT. Now, the REIT got crushed in the first quarter. It's down 33%. Year to date, it's down now about 8%. So it has made an enormous recovery in the quarter we're in right now. I just saw the other day, it was up about 9% this quarter. We have a high yield component here. It was up 4.1% for the, and you're still using that Ginnie Mae money up when you need it. Okay. High yield was up 4.1% for the quarter. It's doing about the same in the quarter we're in right now, and the short-term bond fund is flat for the quarter. All right, didn't talk too much. Open it up for any questions.
If I go on to page 20 for me for a second.
Sure.
What page are you on?
20.
Oh my God, this looks like a sick patient. All right, well, 20 is an interesting chart because it has the blue line represents the market value changes to the plan driven primarily by market forces. You can see in the right the big dip in March, and then the recovery. The green line is really a cash flow line. So if you go back to page 9, I'll show you where the green line comes from. You can see that over the last 10, like the year ending 2000, let's do this a different way. Page 8, it's better. So for the last 10 years, the plan has experienced a net flow of minus 8.7 million. Now, the way that's defined on page 8 is the city contributes money into the plan. The employees have a payroll deduction, right? What is it, 8%? 6%. Then those are inflows. And then you have outflows to pay retirees and administrative expenses. So that shows that the plan cost 8.6 million net over the last 10 years, 8.7 million. However, the plan earned 12.3 million during that period. Now, if you go back to that green line on page 20, the slope of that line, the only way you make the slope less steep, put more money in it, or spend less.
So if Alan stopped taking out so damn much money, would be okay.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's how that works.
So I guess my question is, as long as your market gains or your total gains, whether they're market-based or
It's mostly
contribution-based,
You're right.
as long as they stay strong, then the fact that you're on a lineal descent on your cash flow isn't a huge problem.
No, and when we need, so if Jill says, I need $200,000 in the next 90 days, it's not that much, but an illustration. That money does not affect the green line. That's coming out of the blue line.
Okay, now you confused me. I thought that was coming out of the green line. That's cash flow.
Well, money that we already have in the plan is in the plan. So any money that we spend, that's going to affect the green line. That's money that leaves the plan.
Right.
But that blue line, that portfolio where we raised $200,000 was already in the plan. Now, once she gets her hands on it and spends it, then it affects the green line. That's what you're referring to.
All right. Okay.
All right? So
Where you're gonna have a problem is if the blue line starts showing a lineal descent like the green line.
yes. I was afraid to bring that up. I think so there are a couple of ways we could manage that. One, we can dial in more risk on. If you had to do that, that would raise the expected returns of the plan. But it would also raise some of the volatility. But the trend for higher gains over the, let's say, 5 to 10 year periods would be more favorable. But you'd have to dial in more risk.
Okay, you answered my question. I have to think about your answers now a little bit.
Okay, so here we'll use this analogy, okay? What is the funding ratio? Do you know by any chance? Well, we'll get an update on that. But let's say the fund on March, because it changes. Let's say the funding ratio of the plan was 50%, which isn't that great. It's better than that. That's like being in a game, football game, and you're behind. And if you're behind, what do you do with your offense? You throw the ball.
Yeah.
You take more chances, right? If the plan's at 110% funded, and we have some clients like that, they don't need to throw the ball as much. They don't need to. It's not necessary. They're already they've already gone beyond their funding requirement. So now they can actually trim back the risk. So just think of it that way. If you want to grow the plan faster to raise the funding ratio, you can do it by earning more, contributing more, or spending less. Now we know that you're not going to spend less. And contributing more is a challenge. So it may be that we have to go back to dialing up more risk here. And I've been here a long time, and the prior boards have taken a sort of a different position, and I'll try to explain it this way. The city sponsors 3 plans here, the police, fire, and this one. City is ultimately the guarantor of all 3 of these plans. So perhaps the risk profile of the other 2 plans being higher was enough risk for the city. You can change that anytime you want.
I guess I don't understand if the city's the guarantor of all 3 plans, and we can talk about this privately, so as not to
No, that's
tie up
okay.
everybody's business, but
That's fine.
if the city's the ultimate guarantor of all 3 plans, what was the logic of assuming a higher level of risk in police and fire than in the general pension plan?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not, the boards meet, we never spoke privately. I mean, the views that I picked up at meetings was they were content with the understanding that they were running slightly less risk than the other 2 plans.
Well, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that if you've got the same basic investment philosophy and the same basic advisors involved, why wouldn't you be kind of consistent on the amount of risk that you wanted to assume on all three plans?
Well, like the police and fire run essentially the same lineup of managers and allocation profiles are identical. This plan has a different mix of managers and
Historically, which one's done better?
well, I think historically the results have been similar. In downturns, this plan has done better. In the run-up periods, the other two plans have done better.
Could you do us a favor, and I don't mean to ask too much, but I'm new to this game and to this game in here. Could you perhaps show us the comparison the next time we meet?
Well, actually, we have extra reports from today's meeting, and the 10-year numbers are all three.
Okay, cool. So you can show it to me today.
You can have them.
Cool. Nothing's for free.
So if you look on page, we'll get you what you're asking for. On page 21,
Thanks, Joe.
and you can just open that up and you'll see which plans, actually the police and fire have essentially the same return. So just one of those comparisons is helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. So on page 21, that line, there's a line, that 45-degree line there that goes through the center. I call that the capital market line. But just to give you a sense of if you added more risk, you'd be adding more equity. You'd be pushing the blue dot, which is your experience. You'd simply be pushing that blue dot up along that 45-degree line. Okay, and that's how you would, one way to visualize raising the equity allocation. Was there anything else you'd like to talk about today?
I have a question.
Sure.
He's probably got the numbers there. The dip that we saw back in March, was the dip for the other funds deeper because of the
Probably.
Right.
Do you have one of the other plans? Yeah, there's a scaling there, may not be exactly the same.
Yeah, just a ballpark.
It looks pretty close, actually. Well, the graph is pretty close. I haven't looked at the raw numbers. The trend is the same, I'll put it that way,
Yeah.
or very close.
It shouldn't be that much different. It's just,
It's my concern about what I've just heard was, as this blue line starts, yeah. And theirs is on the right, Don?
This over here is police officers, this is employees,
Yeah.
this 16. Was 20 on general employees, 16 on police, and then here's the firefighters, so they all have the dip, if you see what I'm saying.
I do.
They all kind of corrected, and then they're all on the downhill slide again.
Back to what we're talking about, though, we talked about it as being a football game and where you are in the game. I wouldn't want to make that decision here in the third quarter as things drop down so steeply like they did in March. If we're going to do it kind of on this up trajectory, wouldn't that be a better time to take more risk? Does that make any sense?
well, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. It seems almost like a Hail Mary if it continued to drop down like
Well,
this.
here's the way we try to do that. I've been doing this a long time.
Yes, sir. And
So-
I haven't.
We have a model allocation. And you can see it on page 12. So, we did a little pivot early in the year where we
What
actually,
page was that?
page 12.
Well,
So open up page 12 in the fire book. So we have these targets, then we have the actuals. And if the actuals become too out of whack, you know, if we're underweighted, we got to rebalance. If we're overweighted, we got to rebalance. So this is the discipline. So actually, if the market has really had a sell-off period like it did in March, and the equities are underweighted, then that's an example of the time when you actually add into an area that's just recently gotten beat up. So we don't add into an area that's had a big run. We tend to add back into an area that's had a pullback. And that's how the rebalancing works. So if you look at the, I've never done this in these meetings before, but it's kind of interesting. Look at the comparison. I'm looking at yours now. The convertible bonds, 8.2 is your actual. What's the actual say in the fire or the police?
They're actually on page 8 of the same chart, but it says that they're, for convertibles, they're 8% and 4.5 on the blue line. But the
actual is 4.5.
4.5.
4.5, I'm sorry.
Okay, so there's a difference. So Capital Cities Bank, which drives the allocation process on the other two plans, chose to underweight the convertibles almost half of what your weighting was.
They targeted it at 8, and the actual is 4.5, and our target was 8, and our actual was 8.2.
Yeah.
All right, so what was the best performing category for the year? Convertible bonds. So we won that one, right?
Yeah.
So look at international. We have a target of 15, and actual in the year of 15.1. What's international for the fire?
11.1.
Okay, 11. So international was a big winner for us.
Yeah.
Okay, but look at domestic equity. This is going to be the big difference. We were at 26.7, and what was
43.6.
Yeah. So
The fire.
oh, they're about the same. So
Where did you, do you have any more of those with the
Yes,
fire?
yes.
we got extras.
I wondered how long it was going to take Alan to decide he wanted to look at some of this.
Anyway, my point is, we've run this differently than the police and fire.
Yes.
And you look at and they have had more flexibility to invest in equities. And the outcomes were very close. And so, you know, you were able to get it with more exposure international and the convertible bonds. They had a slightly lower allocation to REITs. So I like the idea that this program is different than the other three. So you've got a little diversification, if you will, by running it slightly differently.
I think you've mentioned that before too.
Police is pretty close to the fire in there.
They should be almost identical. Has this been helpful to you?
It has.
Okay. Is there anything else I could do to please you?
Get a rate of return up a little bit.
I think you'll be very happy with the quarter we're in right now. It's between 8 and 9%.
And you'll please us.
That's one quarter.
I know.
And we'll see what happens. Just a couple of weeks from now, when everybody's rushing to the malls to exchange the sweater that didn't fit. Right?
I wonder how that's going to work out.
We'll see how the rest of the year pans out for us.
It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, of course, some of this stuff becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I see that Fossey, who has traditionally been conservative in his estimates, he's predicting herd immunity by late spring, early summer. And just that statement by itself, I'll promise you, will have people making plans for late spring and early summer.
Oh, yeah.
For travel, for stay, I'd be willing to bet.
Start spending money.
Huh?
Start spending money.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you got other industries that I majored in finance, and then for whatever reason decided I wanted to go to law school. But the interesting phenomenon for me has been the huge sales and then scarcity of product on the flip side of such things as boats, some types of vehicles, Jeeps being one, and motorhomes. I don't know about the travel trailer industry, but those industries have done crazy in terms of sales, which I guess the COVID, I don't know if people are looking for an escape or a distraction or what the deal was, but
Boat sales, Brunswick Corporation is a good stock, symbol is BC, and they make Monterey's and a lot of, and they own Mercury. That's a great stock, but they can't build the boats and engines fast enough.
no, I've got clients, or in my former life, I still have clients that, or now they're friends, former clients, literally almost ran out of boats to sell because they were selling so many new boats, and they weren't pulling the numbers on them. I mean, if anything, the numbers went up.
Now you try to, I don't know what it's like here, if you want to build a swimming pool right now in Orlando, 6 months. So the building materials are in short supply. There's a building boom going on all over the country. So there are some real strong areas of the economy. But if you go to New York City, all those, the theater district, a lot of those restaurants are closed, and a lot of those folks in that industry have left town. It's just there are pockets of, like you said, who saw this coming?
Plywood. If you bought a sheet of plywood lately, go try it. Go buy a 2x4.
Expensive, or you can't get it?
Expensive. You can get it, but it's expensive.
And
$9 for a 2x4.
Oh, my.
you know that fake, it looks like wood and it's not, but it's man-made material they use for decks and stuff. Can't get it anywhere.
Yeah.
Lowe's, Home Depot, they're out of stock. So what does that tell you?
People are, well, and contractors, I've heard various explanations, but some people say, well, people are sitting around, they can't do some of the things they used to do. They look around the house and say, man, I'd like to have a new kitchen. Now's a good time for us to do that. That deck that we haven't been able to do before. And so contractors, especially the people that are doing the small jobs, they're inundated right now in our area.
All over the state, and that third bedroom, let's turn that into an office.
Right.
That's
As we're
going
staying at
on
home
right now.
anyway.
So it's been an interesting phenomenon to watch. And then the colleges, that's going to be an interesting thing to watch too. They've been forced to do the virtual thing. A lot of people found out it worked okay. Some didn't like it, but some found out it worked okay. The biggest thing that I see for us, Alan, right here is the internet availability to the entire county. It's kind of brought out painfully raised the issue of the shortfalls and the disadvantages we have in some areas that don't have high-speed internet. When the kids try to go home and do homework and have to have internet in order to do it, it's been a big deal. So for instance, the League of Cities and the Northeast Florida Regional Council have adopted as their number one priority, attempting to get the legislature to fund and push for more widespread availability of internet.
What about the SpaceX or whatever it is that's going up with these new satellites supposed to cover everything?
I hear that, and I don't know. I hear you, and I understand exactly what you're saying. That supposedly we're all going to be able to have 60 satellites and you can grab internet from any place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's coming. It's just not next week, but
Will it take 10 years or next year?
I don't know, but it's going to happen for sure. And it's not only going to help Putnam County, but it's going to help a lot of areas, rural areas of the United States.
Areas out in the Midwest, plains and stuff. Don't know what internet is. I can't get it.
All right, well, that's all I have for today, and I'll remain here until the end in case something comes up.
Thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
All right, I guess we'll, then if that's, Ms. Jill's looking at me with that face that says, you gotta do something now.
Motion.
So I guess at this point, we have to, see, now you messed up, Ms. Jill, you messed up. We now have to ask for public comments.
No, we have to have a motion to accept this report.
I make a motion, we accept the report.
I second the motion.
We have a motion to accept the report. Anybody have any questions? Val, make a note to get back with me about doing something with Jill, okay? So we have motion, second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, he talked so long, I thought he took up the whole meeting, but I guess we still have to ask Ms. Harvey if she has anything to say.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I will be very brief. The only thing that I have on the attorney's report today would be to just remind everybody that the executive order that allowed us to meet totally virtually was not extended back in November. It is the opinion of our firm that the boards can continue to meet like a hybrid meeting. So long as there's a physical presence, a physical quorum present in a public location, the remaining trustees may meet virtually, whether it's on the phone or on Zoom, and still can vote on any agenda items. Is there any questions about that?
I think that's been the law for quite a long time, actually.
Yes. Yes, it has. Yes, but cities are doing their own thing, and they're issuing their own orders and resolutions, and so there's been some questions from the boards, like, well, what do we do? Can we meet? What do we do? So, yes,
We're following. We're being conservative and going right down the line with our understanding of the law as it previously existed before the governor's executive order. But I have a curveball to throw you since you're there.
Sure.
So I had a question today from someone in the police department, and I understand it's being raised by the firefighters union. So they want to know about the possibility of us running a hybrid retirement system, part being the state retirement system, FRC, and part being our own retirement system. I mean, I understand there's some financial implications, but I don't even know if the law allows such a thing.
With part of the police plan being under FRS and part of it being under the city.
Right.
It's closing the plan, new hires.
Right. I think there would have to be some sort of closure of the plan, and then some members could choose to either go to FRS and some can choose to remain under its current plan. I can certainly do some more research for you and let you know.
Wouldn't the financial implications to the city be pretty serious on something like that?
Could be, in the short term, it could be very serious. Because now,
Yeah, I right off the bat, I'm not 100% sure, but I could definitely research it and get back to you.
the actuary would have a better grasp of that, but just thinking in terms of that green line, the green line would get steep.
So if you don't mind taking a look at it briefly, I don't know how much of a serious push there's going to be, but you have an idea.
And the question, just to be sure, it's the police plan or both police and fire?
I've had it raised. They talk to each other, you know that. So I've had it raised today by the police, but previously I had someone mention it from the fire department. Mr. Bush did not do a good job of getting the fire department under control before he left.
All right, so they want to know whether some members can join FRS and some can stay under the current plan.
The one and go to the other. This idea of divvying
I didn't say I was in favor of it, nor that I wouldn't, I didn't know the answer. And so rather than me trying to find the answer, I figured I'd ask an expert.
Sure. Yes, I will definitely do some research and get back to you on it. Not a problem.
For free, of course. Mr. Bush said your research has to be for free.
That I can promise.
That's been the case for as long as I can remember.
Oh,
You don't know how, you never worked for You don't know how lucky you are. Okay, board meeting scheduled for 2021? Alan was actually not bad to work for at all. He would just squeeze a penny from 4 different directions.
That's the new dates for 2021 for meeting for the general. If you'd like to entertain a motion on that and agree with those dates.
So I'm sorry, where is it?
Second to last page.
It looks like that one.
There you go. It's on the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone have any objection with that? Or one, of course, most interest to us is the general pension board, general employees. So that's 316, 615, 921, and 1214. Anybody have any objection? Motion to accept that plan?
Motion to accept.
Anybody all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, now do we have public comments?
No, now we still have the expenditures. We kind of skipped over that one.
She just won't let me go to public comments, Rusty. All right, expenditures. Who's got a report on those?
That's right there. You should see this document in your package.
Oh, yeah, I did.
That's for the fiscal year.
Okay, so this is just a report.
Yes.
I mean, we can accept it as, and trust that you accurately reported it, but there's nothing for us to approve or consent to, right?
Well, what's done in the past is they've agreed to these purchases and expenses.
What do you mean agreed to them? They're already done.
I know. But apparently that's what the board has been doing in the past, is they see the expenses. If you have any questions on them, I can research them further, but you might see some things like Foster and Foster might be over budget, and sometimes that happens when the years change, that they don't get their bills in on time, or something got delayed due to a pension meeting not happening when it needed to, not having a quorum, so then the expense rolls to the next year, but.
All right, but these monies have already been spent. So all we could do would be question
Yes,
the legitimacy of it and ask to look at it, but other than that, we're just trusting that you've accurately reported to us what's been spent.
Right, and it matches the GL, what's in the accounting system.
Anybody have any question about it? Okay, I guess we could go through the formality of asking if we want to accept it, but again, I think that from my perspective, the fact that no one here has a question about it is sufficient, because I don't know what we're really accomplishing by accepting it. I have no reason to question it. So does anyone else have a reason to question it? Okay, now can I go to public comments, Jill? Anybody have a public comment? Anybody in the chat line?
Nothing, no.
Okay, other business board terms expiring January 21. Tammy McCaskill and Alan Bush.
Yes. So as far as I understand, the people who are currently on the board can remain on the board without being re-voted in. And I know at the prior meeting, Mayor Hill suggests or asked that I bring all the appointments that would be reappointed to the commission.
In January?
Yes,
Okay. So we don't have another meeting before Tammy McCaskill's or Mr. Bush's terms expire.
exactly.
So we'll be bringing this to the commission then in January?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
As long as they agree to stay in the position, there's no changes that need to be.
Mr. Bush, you willing to stay?
I'm sorry.
Are you willing to stay on the board of trustees?
Yeah.
Okay, then is there anything else to come before the board? If not, then can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And by consent, we will adjourn. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you, everybody. Have a happy and safe holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Alan, before the next meeting, let's see what would happen if we tied Mr. Chambers' compensation to a commission based upon the amount